Hello, everyone, and welcome to Super Podcast Action Committee, episode 172. Andrew Eisen here, along with E. Zachary Knight.
Hello, everybody.
And super special guest, Kyle Krause. Hello, Kyle.
Hello, folks. How you doing?
Kyle, who are you?
I don't know.
He's some guy who managed to sneak his way into our podcast.
Yeah,
Kyle...
you found me on the side of the road on the way to the podcast and picked me up on the way here.
Kyle,
I appreciate it.
Kyle runs kngi.org, and
Yes.
he's the guy who, longtime listener of the show, offered Super Podcast Action Committee a home when we didn't have one anymore. So thank you very much, Kyle. No, we've actually wanted you on the show since last fall, but your own podcast is right before this one, so our schedules never really lined up until today. So welcome aboard, sir.
It's been a busy last couple months, so I'm really glad to be here, though. I've been a long-time listener of the show, so...
Right. So tell us a little bit about KNGI, what it is, and why people might want to go visit, other than because that's the home of Super Podcast Action Committee, of course.
The KNGI network at kngi.org is a collective of various podcasts, mostly focused on video game music, especially video game music arrangements and remixes. I know most of your audience would probably be familiar with Overclocked Remix, which is a big source of those arrangements, but there's also many other sources that you can learn about when you listen to various shows. And we also have Super Podcast Action Committee as well, our first talk show. It's an all-talk show. And, so I'm just really... been run that since 2003, actually. Started my own show in 2003 and kind of grew it from there within the last 5 years or so. Things have grown for the KNGI network instead of just being my own shows. It's all sorts of awesome shows that I really like.
So what does KNGI stand for? Anything?
Well, NGI stands for Nitro Game Injection, which was my original show that I started with that has sort of grown and become a video game music talk show where we highlight video game music arrangements, sometimes original soundtrack stuff as well. But there's also a lot of talk going on there. And the KNGI was sort of to be evocative of... a radio station call sign.
Mm-hmm.
So that was...
You're sure it's not K for Kyle?
I've had people actually ask that. It could be Kyle's Nitro Game Injection, but no. That wasn't the original intention.
Sounds really dirty, but...
True, it does. It really does.
Kyle's Nitro Game Injection.
It could have been W Nitro... It could have been W Nitro Game Injection if I were East Coast born, but...
So, looking at the background, I see you're a fan of Mega Man.
That is correct. Also got a couple Sonic comics up further.
And Shovel Knight I see over there.
Yeah,
so I guess
this is a newcomer as of today, so I figured I'd throw him in the back.
See, there are two types of people in this world, and we're about to find out what kind of person you are, Kyle.
Uh-oh.
So, Kyle, Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 3?
This is a tough question. How did I know this was going to come up?
Because that is the question.
That is the ultimate question, really.
The correct answer is Mega Man X, by the way.
Yes, actually, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to agree with you on that. Mega Man X. It's definitely Mega Man X. Mega Man X is my favorite series.
Yeah,
that's
my
favorite
too,
sub-series, but
really,
yeah.
X over the classic series, huh?
Yeah, barely. The classic series runs a close second for me.
Okay.
The classic series is fine. I'm not a big fan of the brutal difficulty and stuff, but I like Mega Man X because it's the updated graphics are awesome. The storylines add something to the game that the original series didn't really have a whole lot of, and they're slightly less difficult than the original series. So.
Depending on which one you're playing.
Yeah. That's true. But,
I actually, of the classic series, my personal favorite is Mega Man 9.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do like Mega Man 9. Mega Man 5 is also really good, if only because Proto Man stage music is one of the greatest unsung songs in the entire series.
Nice.
If you're going to go Mega Man 2 versus Mega Man 3, I have to give the nod to Mega Man 2.
Well said.
It's
That's my pick too.
It's a slightly more polished experience overall. Mega Man 3 was buggy and rushed to a degree. I mean, it still plays
Rush,
much better.
There.
Yes. Much better than a lot of NES games at the time. A lot of the dreck that was coming out for the NES, but still, Mega Man 2 is the overall superior game, I would say.
Also, as a whole, one of my favorite video game soundtracks of really any game.
Oh yeah.
To this day, I walk around. If I'm not, I hum tunes from Mega Man 2 and Ocarina of Time a lot. Those are.
Yeah.
If I'm humming video game music, there's a good chance it's from Mega Man 2 or Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For me, it's Super Mario Brothers, the original one, because those are the only songs I ever remember. I'm not much of a musician, so it's like, you want me to hum a song? Okay, here's the original Super Mario Brothers.
Well, it's funny because Kyle, you might relate to this, being that you're into music. As a musician, I hear music in video games and movies a lot more than a lot of my friends and family do. For instance, my mom and I saw Star Wars, and I started talking to her about the soundtrack and my favorite pieces from my favorite new pieces in the Star Wars soundtrack, and she's like, I didn't hear any of it.
There's too many explosions. I'm sorry.
So I'm like, no, the march that plays when the Resistance comes to Maz Kanata's place and fends off the first door. Oh man, that's my favorite piece of new music. And she's like, okay.
It's like, that's nice.
So like,
I definitely do relate to that on a level. I'm not a musician, but I do definitely pay attention to music in a lot of the media that I check out. So
13U Cube in our chat says that Dragon Warrior or Dragon's Quest music is very catchy, and that's true. I love the music to the Dragon Warrior / Quest games. What I find interesting about that series is it's using a lot of this, not only some of the same themes today in the modern games, but it's also using a lot of the same sound effects, which is so. Boy, that tickles my nostalgia bone in the best way.
It's a very nostalgic game series for sure.
Yep.
I was actually kind of disappointed in that Dragon Quest Heroes, the most recent one, the Dynasty Warrior style.
Dynasty Warriors game.
Yeah. I was kind of disappointed in the soundtrack for that because it wasn't all Dynasty Warriors screaming metal guitar style stuff. It was the same orchestral Dragon Quest stuff that we've been kind of hearing for the last 20 or so years, which is fine. I don't dislike that, but it's like, come on, this was a prime opportunity for some rockin' arrangements of a game series that doesn't normally go in that direction.
Well, it's interesting. I've not played Dragon Quest Heroes, and I really want to, because I'm a big fan of the property, and having played Hyrule Warriors, I found I'm actually a fan of that style of game, too. Speaking of Hyrule Warriors, I really like the the arrangement of the pieces in that, because it's that Dynasty Warriors. There's no vocals, but the Dynasty Warriors very heavy metal kind of guitar-infused flavor, but still doing all the Zelda themes and songs. So it took all the Zelda music, but gave it that Dynasty Warriors music flavor, which I thought was a nice balance between the two.
Go ahead. I feel like in that game, Nintendo was more willing to kind of let, is it Koei?
Koei Tecmo, yeah.
I think, Koei Tecmo. I feel like they were more willing to let them experiment sort of with the Zelda formula, with the music and with the gameplay. Just looking at Dragon Quest Heroes, it's less of a it seems like less of a departure from the series overall. It's more action oriented, but it's still very well seated in Dragon Quest lore and everything like that. So it might be just Square Enix was less willing to let them go more towards the Dynasty Warrior style.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was also a really huge oversight not to call it Dragon Warriors. They really should have gone that route.
I know. It's like it's like what is the game? Total War Warhammer. I'm like, Total Warhammer, dude.
Yeah.
Come on.
That would have made a lot more sense.
I mean, I know the game is known in both territories as Dragon Quest today, but just call it Dragon Warriors.
Yeah. It's a big missed opportunity, I think.
I thought so too. So in the chat, we have Jet Dan and Protoman respectively suggesting a Mushroom Kingdom Warriors and a Fire Emblem Warriors.
I can see both of those.
I could see both of them. I'm not really a huge fan of Fire Emblem. Frankly, I'm not a fan of Fire Emblem. But of course, I'm a fan of Mario. I don't dislike Fire Emblem, just not my game.
I don't see how Mario could fit into that game style. There's just there's not really any sword play. There's not any other than hammers and turtle shells. There's not really any weapons, so to speak.
Tecmo Koei does get pretty inventive with a lot of their weapons, so.
Yeah.
But you're right. The Mario characters, other than when they're using items and suits, aren't really known for any type of actual weapon. And unless you had Mario and Peach and Toad and stuff running into battle, just putting up their dukes and punching the crap out of, which would probably be pretty damned entertaining. Just beat the hell out of the Goombas.
Yeah, see, you could make Mario into a brawler. I could see, I could see it as, so Mario and Peach and Luigi and Toad marching down the street beating up thugs, and that would be cool.
Of course, Peach is going to use Toad as a weapon, just like she uses him as a shield in Smash Brothers, so it just pulls him out of her bar and starts beating people, grab them by the feet, and just smack
nice
with the Toad. That'd be great.
I think it could work. I think it would be rather hilarious to see like Mario with a raccoon tail run up to a whole horde of Goombas and just when one thwack spin of his tail, just have all of them just fly everywhere. It would be pretty glorious.
He just runs at everyone backwards, just running butt first, wagging his tail.
There we go.
There's some possibilities here, actually.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
It would probably, I think that would be the most bonkers that the Warriors games have ever been, and that's saying something for the Warriors series, because that series gets really bonkers.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with some of the special characters and weapons that keep getting introduced to these games. Some great stuff in that series. I love the fact that this series is mechanically sound and complex, but it never really takes itself very seriously. I mean, there's something particularly absurd about one person in one hit sending 59 enemies flying, but oh man, is it satisfying. Not a game for everyone, I don't think, but it's one of those games that people it's like Monster Hunter in that way, and several others. It's a game that people really seem to like, or just not for them. I've spoken with very few people who are like, Warriors games, take them or leave them, So.
Yeah, I haven't spent much time with them at all. I think I played them a little bit at a friend's house once, but yeah, I haven't played any of them extensively, so I can't really say whether I like it or not. But there's plenty of cheap copies out there now. If I wanted to, I could go and spend $5 and try it out. But yeah, I'm not quite convinced to even spend $5 at the moment.
Yeah, we have actually a completely different conversation going on in the chat right now, but one comment that stuck out was from Matthew, who says Nintendo needs to realize that Japan is no longer the center of the gaming world. And that's actually a true statement. That you do get the sense sometimes that Nintendo thinks that um, Japan is the center of the gaming universe, and in some respects it is, especially when you're talking
Yeah.
about Eastern gaming, sure. But you also get the sense sometimes that Nintendo is not aware that the internet is a thing and that everything it does, everyone else knows about. I mean, it could
Mhm.
release a little game in Japan in the 90s and we'd never hear about it, probably not for a few years. But today, Nintendo sneezes and we all read about it, 5 minutes later. So, Nintendo always seems, I always get this, I have this image in my head of a bunch of Nintendo people over in Japan going, huh? How does America even know about this? They want this game? But but it's a Japanese game that we announced to our Japanese audience in a Japanese Nintendo Direct in Japanese. How do they even know? What is this sorcery? It's like, it's the internet, guys. We have people who translate it. We watched here. We Nintendo fans are ridiculous, and we'll watch the Japanese Nintendo Direct in Japanese. Even though we may not, we watch enough anime, so anytime you say baka, we know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
Although that word isn't used very much in Japanese Nintendo Direct, sadly.
Nice.
But all right. So, any before we move on to topics, any games you fine folk are currently playing this week you want to talk about? I'm playing
Um,
Captain Toad and really liking it, making a
yeah.
video about it too. So,
Yeah, I'm still playing Alundra. I don't know how far into it I am. I played about 9 hours so far, but I also found a mobile game. I follow the uh, indie game indie game developers and indie game promo groups on Facebook, and so I get to see what people are making and stuff. And somebody mentioned that they have a game available. It's called Dash Quest, and you just kind of the game is a very retro look, and so kind of Super Nintendo level graphics, but you basically it's an endless runner, but it actually has stages, and you can attack, and you attack monsters as you run along, and you can use spells and items and stuff. It's actually really interesting, but man, is the pacing so freaking slow, because it's geared around in-app purchases and ads, and so you'll hit an ad, a video ad every other stage, and then you get the opportunity to watch a video ad in order to revive yourself one time or get some extra gold or whatever, but they really want you to buy the gold, and I've avoided that so far. But if I were to buy the gold, I could beat the game no time. Without paying money, the game is paced really bad, and so I'm slowly trudging through, and eventually I'll be able to say that I've beaten it, but that'll take me a couple more weeks, I think. But it's not too bad. I think if it was paced a little bit better, it would be a really great game. But yeah. So check it out. It's free if you want to try it. And I don't know if it's on Google Play or not. I haven't looked. I've got an iPhone, so I was able to download it off of iTunes. But yeah, try it out if you like it. If you think it'd be interesting.
all right, Kyle, you playing anything interesting? Or as Trusty Gem pointed out, focusing on awesome games done quick, which today I think is the last day of the speedrunning charity event.
I haven't been watching that, but this last week has been really gaming light for me, I think. But last weekend, I think I was doing some Fire Emblem Awakening on 3DS, and got a couple hours into that. So, not too bad of a game. I'm not usually into turn-based RPGs and strategy games too much, but this one's actually pretty fun, and the character interactions are really great. So, Definitely enjoying it,
I'm
and I'm a big fan of Lucina. So
I'm looking forward to the Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem game, whatever it ends up being called here. Actually, was reviewed in Famitsu this week, and I think it got 2 9s and 2 8s. So it looks like that game's going to end up being pretty good. So I'm excited for that one. All right, so let us look at this week's poll, which asks, how well do you think video game retailers are enforcing their voluntary policies to restrict the sales of M-rated games to minors? And how well do you think they're doing today, a couple of years after, well, we won. The Supreme Court ruled that video games are protected speech. They are art. You cannot legally regulate violent content in video games. So you might think, well, have video game retailers saying, well, now that this is not a big issue and no one's trying to pass legislation, can we sit back, relax, and not worry about enforcing the voluntary policies anymore? Or do we think it's the same, or they've kept improving? So 74 people responded to the poll this week. And let's see, 51% said probably still around the 87% success rate that the FTC reported back in 2013. 32% says they're probably slacking off, and 16% said the industry has probably improved. So most people seem to think that they're about where they were a couple years ago, a few less slacking off, and less than that haven't improved.
Yeah.
Personally, I
see we have some optimists out there.
Yeah, that's for optimism. Sure. I imagine that the retailers are probably, without anyone to push them, I don't really feel like they're falling back or slacking off. I would guess that if the FTC were to do another secret shopper survey, they'd find that the success rate was probably about where it was a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that they're probably slacking off just a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't see them failing more than 20% of the time, which was where it was in 2011, or no, 2009, because 2011 they were at 13% too, failure rate. But yeah, so I think they probably slacked off a little bit, but not to the point where it's like, oh no, they're selling porn games to kids these days. level of scares.
All those porn games that are on store shelves.
You
might sell them to your children.
Yeah. What about you, Kyle? What do you think?
I said it was about the same. I kind of doubt it's changed too much, but I don't really have any experience with getting ID'd while buying M-rated games, or buying games in general, really, because I do all my shopping online. But
that's true. I bought Metal Gear Solid 5 in November or something. I was doing the IGN commissioned me to clean up their wiki guide, so I bought the game, and at Target, I believe, and I was ID'd. And that made me feel pretty good.
Well, I think Target actually requires. Did they have to swipe your ID?
I don't remember, but I know it was the system prompting them for an ID. I don't know if you swiped it or not. I don't remember. But
it's been a while. Like I don't buy. I very rarely bought an M-rated game, and even if I did, I probably bought it at GameStop, where they don't. Where I've got a beard, so I don't get ID'd. But but at Target, the last I heard, their system prompted them, and they had to actually swipe it to verify that an ID was checked, and that you are over 18 or 17 or whatever their policy is. But
that's why
go ahead.
That's why I say that it's probably about the same, because a lot of the bigger retailers have kind of instituted prompts and swipe card requirements for buying M-rated games. So
yeah,
it's probably about the same because of just things like that.
They can't fail. You literally can't complete the transaction without swiping an ID.
Right.
So I actually, as some people say, oh, I'll buy any game I want. It's an invasion. It's like, I don't mind that. What I actually mind is having to track down a sales associate to open the damn get glass case that the game I want to buy is locked behind. That's what
that's
bothers
really
me.
annoying. Yeah.
I don't see that too much anymore. I think Walmart is like one of the last holdouts of that.
No, Target has it too. Walmart and Target both.
Oh, Target, yeah, because
Walmart,
Target does still have it too.
Walmart does the sliding glass doors, whereas Target actually has these display cases with a copy of the game in an anti-tampered case with a big table that you can pull out, so you can actually look at the game box, even though like the bottom half of the back is completely covered up by the mechanism. But yeah, the case itself has to be opened up by an associate in order for you to buy, unless you want to buy something off the discount rack.
Yeah.
And that's just on a shelf.
Right. Or
Yeah.
See, I prefer the way Best Buy does it, in which they have all the games are sitting out on a shelf, but they're in these bulky clear plexiglass tamper cases that has to be unlocked at the register. That's fine. I grab the thing I want, I go up to the register, they unlock it, I go on my merry way.
See, Sam's Club does they instead of putting the games out, they put little placards out, little cards, and you take a card, and then they get the game out of a big giant metal cage up near the front of the store for you. That's a little excessive, I think. But,
that's the old school '90s, early '90s Toys R Us style right there.
Yeah.
That's how they did it back then too. I remember.
Protoman Dan in our chat is from Malta and says, "So far in my country, I've never seen a retail outlet restrict M-rated games to kids."
Uh-oh.
I think it's Toys R Us that I don't know if they do this all the time or at all locations, but I've had it at Toys R Us where I had to take a slip of paper out of. They'd have like an empty case on the shelves, and there'd be a little packet in front of it with slips of paper that you take to the sales associate at the register, and they'd have to go into the back, like into a small stock room, the electronic stock room, and find the game and bring it out for you. It's like, wow.
That is really inefficient.
Well, but of course, all of that is superior, Jeremy, I hope you're listening to this, all that is superior to GameStop, who their method oftentimes is, let's just gut the game, and let's just open the game, take the disc and the manual out, and put it in a drawer.
Half the time they don't take the manual out, and people thumb the manual and get it all creased up for you. Yeah.
Or steal the codes, the DLC codes out of the manual.
Well, they usually take those out because those are usually just in cards or on cards. But I believe GameStop is supposed to take those out with the disc and put them in the sleeve with the disc. But yeah, that's still kind of annoying to have the games open.
Yeah.
You know, you think they would spend some money to either put glass cases up or buy some tamper-resistant or anti-theft boxes for the games. But
Delirical says Toys R Us doesn't do that anymore and has the glass case method now.
Yeah.
So, I don't remember the last game I bought in a Toys R Us. I actually thought before Delirical clarified, I thought was talking about GameStop, and I was like, great, nice to hear that. I haven't bet the last game I bought at GameStop. I don't know. I was thinking Rune Factory Frontier. I think Rune Factory Frontier is the last game that I bought at GameStop for me. I've actually purchased some games at GameStop for my guide writing stuff because it's just convenient. Because if it's a brand new game, they have new sealed copies. A week later, I have found in the past that they're gutted. But so
yeah.
That's that. All right, so let us move on and speak about Oculus Rift and VR in general. Now, we had two stories on this week. The first story was a research report from Super Data Research, which says, and you can probably already tell what I think of these predictions because I'm laughing, is that In 2016, this year, which is only 9 days over, so plenty of time, but by the end of the year, VR, video games will have 55.8 million users of video game VR and will produce 38.9 million virtual reality devices in 2016, leading to 5.1 billion in revenue in 2016. So 55.8 million people adopting VR this year.
You have to admire their optimism.
Talking about optimism. Wow.
Shoot. I don't even think the combined Xbox One, PS4 sales have reached that point yet.
Let me look at that number again. 55.8 million. So I think Sony is at 35. Yeah, I don't think it. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Xbox One is still under 20. And Microsoft's been a little cagey on their numbers. Sony's been flaunting it proud, and deservedly so.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pie in the sky, man.
Well, yeah, and what makes this report even more hilarious is it came out like 2 days before Oculus announced the price of the Rift, and it's like, yeah, I don't see 58 or 55.8 million people paying $600 on top of the $1,200 they'll have to spend on a brand new computer.
You have to, yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, 2 days after this report came out, Oculus Rift announced that the Oculus Rift, the head visor, which also comes with an Xbox One controller and
a few other,
a couple other dongles, but it does not come with the actual Oculus Rift controller thingies. Don't know how much those are going to cost, but basically the visor and an Xbox One controller is going to run you $600 US. So this came out 2 days after this report. So I have to imagine, are the people over at Super Data Research going, oh, well, let's revise those numbers a bit? I don't think we're going to get over 50 million people at $600 just for the unit, which you also need it also comes bundled with 2 games: the Valkyrie Eve, Valkyria, not Valkyria,
Valkyrie,
Eve
and
Valkyrie, and the platformer one, which look cool and are pretty good demos of the tech. But they're not like Mario 64 level system sellers, I don't think, or a Wii Sports thing that's just going to completely capture the imagination of the country and is, oh my gosh, the space sim thingy, I've got to have that. I don't see it quite on that level, certainly not for that price and ending up with that high of a user base by the end of the year.
No,
Not even
nowhere
close.
near that.
Not even close.
Yeah, I think VR this year will be lucky if they get into the millions. I don't know. The Oculus Rift went on pre-order this week, and they according to the site, they sold out within the first day. But that doesn't really tell you how many that they sold.
That tells you there's early adopters, and there always are.
Yeah, there always are. But I don't see virtual reality being one of those Christmas gifts that parents are going to buy their kids. It's just even if it were to come out, even if Sony were to release their VR headset at a $200 price tag, I don't think there's going to be that many people buying it. I think it'll be adopted in the same way the Sony's Move controllers were adopted, which is to say, very few people bought them.
Yeah. Also, there's the fact that it needs games, and it has a few, and it has some interest, but I just don't see it. I don't see a lot of developers. I see a lot of developers going, yeah, I'm not seeing an audience, so I'm not going to wasting
I've
time
seen a
developing
lot
games
of
specifically
I've
for
seen
it.
a lot of developers actually developing stuff for it, but the problem is the games that I have seen are not consumer ready. They are more than they're very they're tech demos at the very most. Very few of them are anything close to being consumer ready and ready to be sold on the stores.
Yeah.
So there's no way this could reach $5.1 billion in revenue this year.
So, a couple of comments from the peanut gallery here. 13U Cube says, so will Obama subsidize a percentage of the Oculus Rift with the Affordable Rift Act?
There we
Like
go. That's awesome. I like
The
that.
Affordable Rift Act. It's got a nice ring to it. I actually like that. Delirical says the controllers for the Rift are $100.
Ooh.
Hopefully that's for both of them and not each. The left and the right is $100 each. Let's see. Matthew says that only 1% of PCs can even do VR.
You've got to have a pretty beefy rig.
You have to have 4 USB ports, and I think they all have to be 3.0, right?
I don't know. I haven't looked into the specs there.
And I was like, 4? What do you need 4 for?
Wow. Well, you're gonna have two dedicated ones for the screens, and then probably 2 more for power. That's the only thing I can think of.
And then each controller has one, and so that's it. Lyrical just clarified that it's $100 for each controller. So if you want one in each hand, that's $200.
$800.
Biscuits.
Yeah. Holy
wow. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
that kind of makes sense why they're packaging in a Microsoft Xbox One controller, because there's really no other way you could actually do it. So, and which is nice. The Xbox One controller is a really nice controller, but still, I don't see how if we're going to have poor install base of the Rift itself, we're going to have hardly a blip on those controllers if they're another $200 on top of it.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see here.
Like
a video
USB
card.
Power strip or something.
This is the high performance PC. This is the recommended specification. Video card: an NVIDIA GTX 970 or an AMD R9 290. I don't know how much video RAM that is, though. I'd have to look those up.
Those are very high-end cards.
Those sound. The numbers are. I don't know the numbers really well, but those numbers sound like the current top of the line numbers. Right around there.
Yeah,
right?
Very close. Very close. Yeah.
It needs an i5 or greater CPU.
Okay.
8
actually
or more
isn't that
gigs of
bad.
RAM.
No.
Yeah, that's the RAM and the CPU is not too bad. I think it's mostly the video card that's going to kill you. You're going to need an HDMI 1.3 video output, 3 USB 3.0 ports, and 1 2.0 port.
Okay.
And then Windows 7 or newer. Windows 7 64-bit, which if there's a Windows 7 32-bit, I'm going to kick Microsoft.
That's true. I don't know.
Yeah.
A Windows 10 32-bit?
Windows. Well, no, Windows 7. Yeah, Windows 10 32-bit. I meant, but Windows 7. There are 32-bit Windows 7s, which is still stupid.
Well,
Let's see. The R9 290X. It depends on which vendor you go with, but the one I'm looking at here has 4 gigabytes of DDR5 memory, GDDR5, which is quite a lot.
It's like $300 or $400, isn't it?
It's also going for $360. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
But the graphics card is definitely what you want to invest in for gaming
the
on
970, the NVIDIA 970 is 4 gigs of memory, video memory. It's GDDR5.
Yeah, Matthew's coming out $350 for the 970. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's some beefy specs. Like my laptop has everything except for the USB ports and the video card, and I can't upgrade my laptop, so I'd have to buy a whole new PC in order to use an Oculus Rift.
Yeah, let's see. I've got two 3.0s in the front. I'm actually not my mic and webcam. I'm not sure if those are 3.0s that I'm plugged into, and I'm not unplugging them to check. So I'm not sure if my computer's beefy enough to actually run Oculus Rift. Probably not. I probably don't quite have the graphics card for it, because this computer I think is. This computer's 3 years old. I almost certainly don't have the graphics card for it.
They've got some on Oculus's website. They've got some links for what they consider their Oculus Rift ready computers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an Asus for $950, a Dell for the Dell's coming soon, and then they've got an Alienware for $1,000. And if I were to pick between the Asus and the Alienware, I'd pick the Asus, mainly because I like the case better than the Alienware one. You know, the $50 doesn't really matter if I'm spending that much. But no, I'm not getting a Dell. I hate Dell so bad. And Alienware is Dell.
Alienware is Dell anyway.
So I'm not. That's another hit for it. My laptop is an Asus Republic of Gamer, and I've had this for 4 years now, and I love it. I would never buy a different laptop.
So will the Rift work with Linux?
That's another question, and that's something that I've been wanting to look into, is if you could run it on Linux. I would assume so, but because it's mainly a display, and the game handles all of the communication with the device. So I would assume as long as the game works on Linux, it should work. And there's got to be drivers too. On top of that. But yeah, I would assume it would work on Linux.
We're getting an emphatic no to Linux in the chat.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
Well, then that's then so much for that.
So, also this week, something happened where a product page for Sony's VR helmet thing, which is called
Morpheus? Project Morpheus?
No.
Is that what it's called?
No, I think that's something else. I forget what. Someone in the chat remind me what the hell Sony's that thing is called.
Project Morpheus, or was
Project Morpheus
VR. Yeah, it's PlayStation VR now, I think.
Oh yeah, okay. So there was a product page on Amazon Canada, I think, which listed which briefly listed had a listing for Sony's VR thing, and it listed it for what translates to $800 US. And a release date of December 31st, 2016. Now,
does it come with giant enemy crabs or anything? I hope so.
Now, a lot of people are like, "Oh,
PlayStation 4."
At least it's got to come with at least Ridge Racer.
Yeah, so it was Project. So confirmed by the chat, it was Project Morpheus, and now it's just PlayStation VR, which I'm fine. That's good.
That's fine.
But yeah, a lot of people in the chat were like, "Oh, what is Sony thinking?" I would put money down that that's not going to be the price of Sony.
No,
it's not going to be $800 US. They would be insane to try and charge that much. I think this was just a dummy listing. Amazon and other retailers very often will just so that they have a listing so that people can click that pre-order button, they'll put in a dummy price and err on the extreme high side just so they don't have to raise the price, because that really pisses people off. And they usually have to honor what price they originally had it at, but if the price drops, then nobody cares. No, I want to pay $800. I pre-ordered this at $800, and damn it, I'm going to pay $800. Also, likewise, the release date, December 31st. All that means is they're pretty sure the PlayStation VR will be out sometime this year, and they'll pull the date back to whatever it is. So. Sony probably said, "Holy crap, do not put that post up. People are going to call us crazy." And we are. So
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so no way in hell PlayStation VR comes out being $800.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah, I think they're going to be seriously pushing it if they go over $300, because the people are already having to spend $400 on the console. They're not going to want to spend 400, 500, 600, whatever on a headset. It's like they might as well buy a nice TV.
Yeah,
So.
Sony's going to have to really come out swinging at E3, showing a. I think there is a cat in heat outside. Sony's. I imagine the PlayStation VR will probably be out in the fall, and Sony is whatever they're charging, and I imagine it's probably going to be $300, $400 somewhere around there because it's fairly pricey tech anyway. They're going to have to come out swinging at E3 and showing a ton of really compelling software, saying, yeah, the VR is as much as the PS4, but you want this, you need this, and here is why. Likewise, Nintendo's going to have to do the exact same thing with the NX, so should be an interesting E3 this year.
I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised that Sony managed to get VR working on the PS4 when Oculus needs such really freaking beefy specs for.
Well, from what I've read,
to it, I know.
Yeah, from what I've read, the PlayStation VR, the Sony VR tech is not quite at the same level as the Oculus Rift. I think from a mass market consumer standpoint, it's close enough. But I think, but it's definitely lesser tech.
It'd probably be comparable between a 720p TV versus a 1080p TV. For mass market, nobody really cares, but for those who really like their Blu-rays, 1080p is what they want. So I have a question for you guys. What do you think the optimal number of games how many games will have to release alongside the PlayStation VR for people to really consider taking it up en masse?
I think it needs at least an initial library of 10 with at least one standout, gotta have it, like Wii Sports level cultural phenomena. Everyone has to, something that shows up on Jimmy Kimmel level of exciting. Well, actually, I'm sure the Oculus Rift and the Sony VR, all that crap's going to show up on Kimmel's show anyway. But you get what I'm saying. There needs to be that one game that everyone needs to have, and there needs to be a complement of other games to surround it, plus the promise of more games to come in the future. And that was. Because that was the trouble with the Wii U's, one of the troubles with the Wii U's launch, is it actually had a really nice solid launch. There were about 30 games launching for the Wii U. Nothing that was really like, oh my god, because Nintendo Land certainly wasn't the game that everyone had to have, but it was a solid launch lineup with a lot of really good games. The problem is at that point, we already knew that there was nothing in the future. There was no Grand Theft Auto Grand Theft Auto 5 rather would not be coming, Metal Gear Solid 5 would not be coming, BioShock Infinite would not be coming, Tomb Raider would not be coming, and on and on and on and on and on. And then January hit and no games came out, and February hit and no games came out, and it was like halfway through March before we finally started getting games, and people were like, solid launch but no games. If VR launches with 5 nifty games or 10 nifty games, but there's like nothing on the horizon, and people get the sense that it's going to be these 5 games and that's it, that's going to spell the end of Oculus Rift or Sony VR, I think. So.
I think it could. I think it could drop with. I think it could drop maybe with about 5 launch titles, and then it really does need at least one killer app, though. It needs its Wii Sports or Halo or whatever to really push it, but I don't know. These console add-ons kind of give me shades of Sega's waning days of the Genesis. It's like,
Very rarely do I'm trying to think of a console add-on that actually stuck. Because
Um,
I mean, even going
the
back, yeah, the
Motion
Nintendo
Plus.
60. Yeah, I guess that kind of became the default controller, but it's almost
Yeah.
just a new version of the controller rather than a new
Yeah.
thing, like
Yeah.
the Microsoft Kinect or the
The
PlayStation
PlayStation.
Move or the N64 expansion pack or I don't know the broadband adapter for the GameCube. Uh,
Or
the
the hard drive and network adapter for the PlayStation 2.
Mhm.
And it's like the hard drive had 3 games that used it. Um, but you could use it for a virtual memory card, which was nice. But
Yeah.
well, not really a virtual memory card. You could copy your memory card onto it and then recopy or copy one off of it onto a memory card so you could use it,
Yeah.
which was not quite as good as a virtual memory card.
Yeah,
But
developers really seem to hate split audiences like that when you add the
yeah,
new hotness in the middle of a console's life, because then you have the haves and the have-nots, and they have to cater to both crowds, and they'd rather just not. The funny thing that happened is Microsoft seemed to realize this and then bundled the Kinect in with the Xbox One, and still nobody wanted it.
yeah. Yeah, that's
La-
because nobody liked the Kinect on the 360, and if nobody likes a piece of hardware for 5 years, they're not going to suddenly want one when the new console comes out. I'm sorry. It's like I don't care that it now detects 10 million more points in the space than the original Kinect did. It's still a stupid gimmick.
in the
And
chat,
Microsoft learned their lesson, and they got rid of the thing. They broke it away.
Laxter37 mentioned the 32X and Sega CD. I would not call those successful, really.
No,
They're
no,
definitely
they
not
weren't.
successful.
32X. How
As
many
much as I
games did
love,
that use? Like
as much as I
4?
love the Genesis and both of those, some of the games on both of those, it's just
Hmm.
Yeah, the GameCube adapter or the Game Boy adapter for the
yeah.
GameCube. That's awesome. That's the only reason I keep my Game Boy or GameCube around, so I can play Game Boy games on my television. The Super Game Boy was great, but it's so old. It's obsolete now because of the GameCube adapter. I would rather have a GameCube and the adapter than the Super Game Boy. Mainly, and the reason is because the GameCube one plays the entire history of GameCube games. There's only a handful of games that it can't play, and that's just because they had stupid things on them like motion sensors or light sensors and stuff, things that you can't really use with your GameCube. But
The motion sensing one you could actually use, just have to pick up the entire GameCube
yeah,
and
you have to
take
move
it
the
around.
around. Look at my
Well, it
giant
had
controller.
You could totally do that. It had a handle.
Yes, that's
There
what
you
the handle
go.
was
Grab
called.
that
That
sucker
was the
by
whole
the
point
handle
of
and
the handle. It was a small console. You could
try
get, you
that
could
with
get rough
try
with
that
it.
with the original Xbox. Oh, that was a big boy, the original Xbox.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
That was
thing's a
what, like
beast, though. You could
3
drop it down a
PlayStation
flight of
2s.
stairs.
Hmm.
Yeah. Good stuff. But, yeah, but VR is definitely going to need some killer apps.
Yeah.
I would say one killer app, probably two would be your safe bet because not everybody is going to want that one game. So you definitely need at least one other. You could call it a killer app, but one other must-have if you're going to get it. And then yeah, I would say 10 to 20 games somewhere in that range would be optimal, so that way that you can cater to a broader audience. But again, I haven't seen that much variety in the number of tech demos I've seen. Most of them are um, either on rails style games where you just kind of travel on this thing and you could turn your head and stuff, or they're first person shooters, and and it's like
Now,
neither one appeals to me.
as
So,
far as mass market appeal goes, do you think the inherent difficulty of sharing a VR experience with other people, not just online but with people in your own home is going to be a barrier for mass market penetration. Also, do you think that having to strap something on your face is going to be a hard sell for a lot of people?
I
Because
think both of
Lord
those.
knows some people hate 3D TVs because, like, I don't want to wear the stupid glasses thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think those are both issues.
Mhm.
The share experience one isn't as big as long as you can also project the game on an actual television set where where it doesn't split the view like the actual headset does, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
has one view. That can be done, and and that would mitigate a lot of the concerns about the shared experience. While only the person wearing the headset would see the actual 3D, the other people can still see what they're doing. But yeah, strapping the thing on people's head. I tried out a Rift, not last year, but the year before, and it wasn't uncomfortable, but it's just not an experience that I would want to sit for like 3 hours and game that way. There's just no way I would be willing to do that. I kind of got annoyed after the 5 minutes that I tried it out.
Yeah, it demos really well, but I'm wondering, will there be experiences on the various VR consoles that you can just take a Saturday and sit down and just play all afternoon? Or is it something that you're really not going to be wanting to spend much more than like half an hour in a sitting?
Well, with how many freaking wires it has coming out of it, at least 4. At least you're gonna
It's like, well,
you're gonna want to spend some time with it, so you don't have to freaking unplug and replug the thing
I
back
can
in.
just imagine we're gonna have remember when the Wii first came out and people are chucking the remote through TVs?
Yeah.
I imagine there's going to be a bunch of videos of people with the damn thing strapped to their face, spinning around in their chair, falling over, yanking their computer tower off of their desk because they get tied up in the cables and they can't see what they're doing because they're spinning around in their
Slamming
chair.
into walls and.
Yeah.
My son tried it out the same day I did. He was 9.5 at the time, and he put it on, and within just a few minutes he almost fell over, just because he got disoriented and dizzy. And luckily, I was kind of expecting something like that to happen, so I was right there behind him, so I was able to catch him. But after he got used to it, he was able to hold his own and actually stand and play with this thing for 10, 15 minutes at a time. But still, we're going to have videos of people falling over just because of the vertigo effect. And then there's going to be the people bumping into things and tripping over stuff, but yeah, that'll be fun to watch.
Certainly change the Let's Play style, because even a lot of Let's Plays still have the little picture-in-picture of the person playing the game and talking at the camera and making silly faces. Now they're going to have this weird thing on their head, and it might still be entertaining, but it might change the game a little bit.
I don't know. You might want the actual Let's Player to be the big screen and just have the game in the corner so you can watch the Let's Player just bumping into things.
That would be an interesting change in dynamic for that, because just Let's playing the game itself as the main thing, that's just not going to draw a lot of viewers in.
Yeah.
They want to see the people playing the game act like morons and get hurt.
Yep. So of course, everyone's just going to be outside playing with their Pokemon Go thing, trying to find Pokemon out in the wild. Don't you want to go back home and play the Oculus Rift? No, I've got to catch Bulbasaur or whatever.
I've got to go to Chernobyl and get Mewtwo.
That's right. No, kid, we're going to be reading stories later this year about 6-year-old kids hitchhiking or stealing their parents' money to buy a bus ticket to New York, to go to Times Square to compete in the Mewtwo event. It's like, where's my child? Damn you, Pokemon! So I mentioned this in the Shoutbox earlier this week, but we're seeing the VR tech demoed at E3 and other trade shows. But I was trying to think of a way that that could get to mass market to try, and I was thinking, it's a damn shame that video game arcades are not as prevalent as they once were, because I think VR tech would work really well in an arcade setting.
Well, didn't they used to do that in some of the bigger arcades where they had connections to actual real connections to video game and hardware developers. They used to have certain amounts of VR tech at some point, but nothing as convenient as an Oculus Rift. And so like an arcade would be a great place to do this, but because arcades are all but dead now, they're you're not going to get enough people aware and in there. Game stores like GameStop or are there other game stores?
No, there's only GameStop. At least that's what they want you to believe.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's
I don't
lots of
see
video game
Babbage's
stores.
anywhere, do you?
There's lots of local places.
Yeah, there's lots of used game stores, but very few dedicated game stores that sell brand new games. But they might be a place to do it. Maybe like Nintendo, when they did the Best Buy events where they set up the games for people to play at Best Buy, and you drove to Best Buy and tried out the Wii U and stuff there. That might be possible. Go on, take it on the road and have
set them up
this
those
place set up
stupid
around
mall kiosks.
Yeah, malls are still around. Just
Yeah.
rent a kiosk space and set up VR there. That could work. Malls still have lots of people in them. So, but of course, people associate kiosks with low quality merchandise, so that might harm you a little bit.
It's usually all the bootleg video. It's like, this new console plays every game system's games ever. It's like, is that legal? Yes. That's why I'm not going to be here
The
tomorrow.
Retron 5 is awesome. I just wish I had one. But,
I've seen them with bootleg game merchandise. Like my closest mall here, I see like Mario plushes that don't look quite right, or like Sonic backpacks that are a little weird. It's like
well, that's
sure
a
you
bit
should be
off
selling
model.
this.
Yeah.
Where's the Nintendo seal of quality?
Yeah. Kind of weird.
So, okay, it is 7 o'clock, so that is our show for the evening. We actually did have another topic, but we didn't get to it. Oh well.
No. Yeah, we were going to talk about T-Mobile and bash them for a while, but
yeah, but that was actually funny because there's a lot of finger pointing between T-Mobile and the Electronic Frontier Foundation this week, which was kind of a joy to read. A bunch of T-Mobile's like, this! And EFS goes, huh-uh, and T-Mobile goes, yeah-huh, T-Mobile goes, nah-uh, it was great.
yeah.
It was Schadenfreude. Nothing like it.
It makes me sad because I want to like T-Mobile. I have T-Mobile. It's like
Is that why you want to like them? Because you have them?
Yeah. Well, I switched from Verizon to them just because of unlimited data. So it's like, oh, you're doing stuff that I don't appreciate. You're doing the same things everyone else is doing. It's like, crap.
Well, briefly, that's one of the weird things about their whole new binge on program, which you can't opt into. You're in it. You have to opt out of it if you don't like it. And it applies to people with unlimited data. And it's like, why? I have unlimited data. Why the hell would I want to restrict, downgrade, throttle, however you want to phrase it, my video streaming? It's unlimited. So.
Yeah, that's sort of the point. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have T-Mobile, but I have sassed T-Mobile on Twitter a few times. What's interesting is it usually responds too,
Yeah.
which is kind of rare. But anyway, let us, Kyle. Thank you very much for being on the show. Great to finally meet you. Great to have you on the show. And so let us plug our stuff and get out of here. Andrew Eisen here, Eisen is how you spell the last name. Plug it into YouTube, and you can find excellent videos like Mother Reacts to Son Masturbating, which is now over 500,000 views.
And only 13 cents in ad revenue.
No, it's like last time I looked, it was about 33 cents.
Not bad, not bad. You're rolling in it. You're rolling in it.
You know, I just seriously though, I would like to thank all of my viewers who contribute to the about $10 a month that I earn through ad revenue. I mean, it's certainly I can't live off of it, but it's an extra $10 or $12 a month. I'll take it. I like it. And the government doesn't seem to really care. They're like, oh, you made $113 in ad revenue this year. You know what? Go ahead and keep it. That's cute and all, but go ahead. My freelance writing, on the other hand, no, they want a good 30-40% of that, which almost makes me not want to freelance anymore. But okay, so that's YouTube. At Andrew Eisen is Twitter, and my Facebook page is Andrew Eisen YouTube. So that's where you can stalk me online. Zachary, go ahead.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at EasyKnight, and you can follow my game development work. It's DK_gaming on Twitter. It's DivineKnightGaming.com. I'm actually working on a fun little mobile game. Hopefully, I can get some gameplay programmed out this week. I really want to get this done because I had this idea just flash in my head earlier this week and said, yeah, I need to get that on into a playable state. So check that out. I haven't named it yet, so you'll have to bear with. It's called Abstract RPG right now. That's my working title. And you can follow the Oklahoma game development scene at OKGameDevs on Twitter and OKGameDev.com. And if you want to support me in any of this stuff, you can support me on Patreon. It's just search for Easy Night, or you can find convenient links at all my websites. And I actually was able to cash out my first $10 there this past week, which was nice. It took me 6 months to get it, but I was able to make $10. But yeah, some more people will help because the Patreon also goes towards keeping game politics online, so that's always good. So there's all that.
Okay, Kyle, before you plug your stuff, I just want to read a comment that just came in from Ultimaniac, who says, "You guys are woefully ignorant of the stuff going on in VR right now. A lot of the stuff you guys are bringing up has already been addressed by Sony, HTC, or Palmer himself." Well, Ultimaniac, next time join in the chat, man, and let us know where we're going wrong. Give me some specifics. Hey, I will certainly cop to I am no expert. If we got anything wrong, let us know in the comments, and we'll get back to it next week. So, Kyle, plug away.
Well, I will say that I am woefully ignorant of a lot of the VR stuff as well. I haven't even played with a Rift myself yet, so I don't know. I'm a complete outsider on that, but I would love to try it. I'm always interested in new technology. It's definitely out of my price range, but I would like to try it. So, anyway, if you want to head on over and check out what I'm doing, I'm over at kngi.org. That's KNGI. And got a whole ton of shows going on over there. Super Podcast Action Committee. Definitely proud to have you guys as one of those. And have my weekly show, Game Fuel, on there, coming out every week. Along with the talk show Bumblecast, which is the official podcast of Bumble King Comics that I co-host along with my buddy Ian Flynn, who happens to write these comics right here, the Mega Man comic, and up there, I don't think you can see it, the current Archie Sonic the Hedgehog comics as well. Mega Man unfortunately just ended, but the Sonic comics are still ongoing, strong, and
Nice.
have a good time hosting it with him. We talk about various topics of kind of whatever we want. Just our latest episode that's going to be coming out this Monday was talking all about tabletop RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons. So do a lot of nerdy talk over there, just not just gaming, but all sorts of stuff. And Nitro Game Injection still kind of on hold. My co-host for that show, Larry, he just had a kid recently, so and it's just been kind of difficult doing 3 shows. So I kind of put one on the back burner for now, and then I'm focusing on just the 2. So lots of other shows going on over there as well. So be sure to go check them out if you're into video game music and video game music remixes and arrangements. You can also find KNGI at Facebook, facebook.com/Nitro Game Injection, and you can follow me on Twitter at KyleJCRB. And I think that just about covers it.
All right.
Well, you've all been listening to Super Podcast Action Committee, episode, 172. Thanks for listening. You can email us at superpackpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at superpackpodcast, and please like us on Facebook. We'll be back at you next week, so take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Really enjoyed it.